Hi folks, so welcome, and in this lesson what we're going to be looking at is the oblique plane. Okay, now so I'd like you to get a sheet, set it up, and just basically copy it, but I want to talk you through it as we're going through it. So the oblique plane, before we just come to that, I'm going to want to draw a sketch of planes we would have been used to seeing other than our usual vertical and horizontal plane. Okay, so just over here on the left hand side we'll do a little sketch. Now this would be our vertical plane, of course, up here. This will be our horizontal plane down here. And I'll do these in a bit heavier in a moment. I'll do it as I'm going along. Now, first kind of simply inclined plane that we might be just used to seeing is a plane like so, which is another vertical plane. You probably use this over to one side for an end view. But we might have seen this cutting objects in junior cycle to date, okay? And I'll do another one now here. And this time it will be at an angle. We'll put it at an angle. And the angles can vary, of course. And I'll just put a third plane in here, and I'll just make it a small plane now just to fit it in. So I often liken planes, by the way, to sheets of glass, okay? And that could be a sheet of glass lying up there against the wall. And we usually, when we're doing something like that, I like to put in the kind of what artists would use for an annotation, not an annotation, but a symbol for glass, okay? And that's always what this stuck in my mind has been likened to, okay? So I'll just put a color on that now. Now, these are the kind of planes we would have come across in junior cycle to date, sometimes in what we have covered to date as well in 5th year DCG. Now, these planes, of course, could have been cutting objects, okay, and we would have to find true shapes or the likes. But what is kind of something that's going to be of interest to us this time is where these planes meet. I'm sorry, now that pen is dried up. Where these planes meet our standard vertical plane and horizontal plane. Okay, so I'm just going to do these lines in heavier, put an emphasis on them. And where they meet, we call these the traces, okay? So, and usually we put down these three letters here for T. This will be the horizontal trace running around here, of course, and the vertical trace up there. On such a one over here, like just a sheet of glass, so we could have our vertical trace there, horizontal trace. Now this isn't by any means every single simple plane. Obviously the angles could differ on them, okay, but these would be the kind of type of ones we would have been used to seeing to date. Now if we were to go in a moment now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to draw, just sketch down an orthographic of these, okay? So just put in a ground line there. Now if I call these planes 1, 2, and 3, okay, and let's say I'm just sketching down now the traces of these planes. If I was to sketch down the trace of the first plane, put my T there, vertical, and that would be the trace of plane number 1. The plane of and I'll just put in the 1 over that. The plane, or the traces of the plane 2 would look something like this. So again, that was vertical, but it was going off at an angle this time. And again, mark in VTH. And plane 3 might have just looked something like this. Okay. And again, you'd have your vertical trace on the third one, and horizontal trace down there. So these would be simply inclined planes that we would have come across to date. And we probably would have seen them cutting object cylinders, in particular in orthographic in first year. Now let's do a quick sketch of the oblique plane, which we're coming on to, okay? So again, just do up a quick sketch. vertical plane, horizontal plane. And we're just going to sketch this guy in here. Now in this one, as we're looking at it, the plane, and planes can go on forever, okay? But I'll just put in a wavy end like that to finish it out. These planes are inclined oblique planes to both the horizontal and vertical plane, okay? And we'll just put in VTH there again. And remember, I just put down a few notes as we're going along. The traces, okay? The traces, these are where the planes meet the horizontal plane, HP, and vertical plane, okay? So that's what our traces are there. And our oblique plane over here, as we said, is tilting off to the right, and this one could be tilting to the left as well, okay? So even if you wanted to, we'd even do another small one. It's a smaller sketch. Vertical plane, horizontal plane. And you could also get them like this. Okay. And we'll just put a bit of colour in on that. Now I do often think about drawing. I suppose drawing is all about truth, and I reckon this is probably the most important chapter in the book, because it's all about finding true shapes, true lengths. Well, we're used to doing that anyways, but it's a bit more difficult with the oblique plane. And when you can manipulate the plane, okay, and see it and look at it perpendicular, you'll be able to see the true shape of things. And there's different ways we can do that with auxiliaries, by rebatting the plane, and in time, as we're going through these lessons, we'll have a look at them all. Just to take this one here though, if I was to do an orthographic at this guy, this one here, right, the traces of the plane might look something like this. And we'll put down T, that's X, XY line, T, V, and H. Okay. And in a moment now, we're going to do a simple, quick question over here. But in fact, I might do the question. Sometimes I like to do the question first, and then we'll talk about why it works, the theory behind it. Okay. So I'm just going to draw a little hexagon, and I'm just going to make it sides 20 mil. So I'm coming in 100 of a distance here. If you want to copy this, and I'm just coming down 5 mil of a distance, and I'm making this hexagon 20 mil in length, the sides on it. Keep it fairly simple. Now, and I'll just label that as well. As you know, I'm a big fan of labeling. 4, 5, and 6. Now what I want to do is I want to draw the elevation, and I have the traces already set up here. This guy's going up at 45 degrees, by the way. This guy's down here at 30 degrees, keep it handy. Now, by using the traces, the vertical and horizontal traces here, I'll be able to draw this guy up here in elevation. So I'm pretending this is a cylinder, or sorry, a hexagonal prism, and it's been cut by an oblique plane. So to do that, I'll put one of them perhaps in color here to show you, to illustrate it. And if you can follow this one, you'll be able to follow any of them. So if we bring up points 1 and 2, will run along the same line there. We'll just do this for point 2. Bring it up here. So it's coming. And then it's going to come across here. I'll bring up 2 from there. So point 2, I'm taking a line parallel to the horizontal trace. it's coming up vertical. Where it hits the vertical trace, it's coming across, and I bring up my point there, and that'll get me number 2. Now, I'm going to do the same for the rest of them quickly there, and I'm just going to leave these ones in pencil. But if you apply the same method for point 2, you'll be able to do the others no problem at all. And point 1 will be straight on this line up here. So I can extend across that guy there. That'll give me 1. 3, bring it across there. That'll get me 3. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Coming up over. That'll get me 4 up there. 5 is on the same line. And finally 6. Just to extend that guy over there. We get me 0.6. Now if I join them up, and that's the beauty I'm always saying to you about labelling, the points have to go back the same way together. So 1 to 2, 2 to 3, up to 4, over to 5, to 6, and back down to 1. So what we're doing here is we're using the oblique plane, and I'll go through the theory in a minute, as I said, to show us what would that object look like when it has been cut by this inclined oblique plane. Okay, and if we want to put just a bit of color on that surface up there, so the oblique plane now would help us to see that object has been cut. Now, to go over the theory and why that works, it's based on something, on the principle of rising water. Okay, so I'm just going to finally do one last sketch here of a vertical and an oblique plane. If you copy me likewise, please. And we'll just do it very lightly first this time, till I get it set up right. I'm just going to pick a point there. Now, if you just follow me along, and we'll do this sketch first, and then I'll explain to you why this works. T. Okay, and now, this sketch, actually, if you want to look at it, this sketch is in your book on page 144 also, okay? Now, so this is an oblique plane here, right? Okay. Now let's say, for argument's sake, we came along with another sheet of glass and we were to glue it on there at the back and make that a contained prism, okay? So, and then let's say we were to come along and we were to drill a hole in it there, and we were to start pouring water down into it here, okay? And that glass started to fill up. Well, the principle of rise in water tells us that you can imagine if you just started pouring in the water, it would come out to meet that line there, so it would, because that's the sheet of glass. And then as you poured in more and more, the water line, as you filled up that, would go up parallel to the horizontal trace. And this is why this works in the same method. So if we have a point there, okay, now when we're looking at it in plane, I'll just get another color, sorry. When we're looking at it in plane there, what we're doing is we're drawing it in, we're bringing in that point, bringing it in along until it hits the ground line here. Then we're going up where it hits the vertical trace. We're going out, and that gets us our point P1. Okay, and we can also, with the orthographic, of course, we just bring it straight up and it hits the XY line and up, and that's what we did over here. Okay, we brought it over till it hits the XY line, then we brought it up, then we brought it across, and we brought it straight up. Over, up, across, and then straight up. Okay, as you're looking at it there in a 3D. And that'll find us the point. Now, you can do it that way, and you can also work it that if you had an elevation set up, okay, I could actually do the reverse steps to get a plan view, and we will do that in a couple of upcoming questions. So this is just an introduction to the oblique plane. So I'd like you to copy this sheet down, have a think about it, have a look at your book as well, if by all means, if you want to. And just to get into your head, the key things in this lesson are the traces, okay? So that's where the plane intersects the vertical and horizontal plane, and the oblique plane is to be found inclined to both the horizontal and vertical plane, is the way I'd put it in my own words of describing it, okay? And where they hit, of course, you get these traces, and when we draw them in an orthographic drawing, that is what they look like. And there's one here, and there's one there in the proper orthographic that we did with our instruments, okay? So simply inclined planes you would have been used to seeing. Oblique plane, the new piece of learning for this lesson. So folks, this is just sheet 1, and we're going to be working through a series of these over the next couple of weeks. So I hope you found this useful, folks, and we'll talk to you soon in an upcoming video.